Hi, I'm Daniel Wong, and today we're going to be playing a Pioneer deck I'm calling Bant Turnbo Fog. So in-person Magic tournaments are starting back up again, and in my area there are a lot of Pioneer events coming up. So I was searching for a Pioneer deck that I would be happy taking to those events, and this is what I came up with. It's a largely blue-based deck that's very similar to modern Taking Turns decks. If you're familiar with the Dictate of Kruphix of style decks, this plays out in much the same way. So step one is to get an engine online. Our cheapest engine here is Search for Azcanta. It's 2 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 1, which means look at the top card of your library. If you don't like it, it goes in the graveyard. If you like it, it stays on top. Then if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, it transforms into a land that can basically spend 4 mana to impulse. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, and then choose one. It needs to be an instant or sorcery from among them, and it goes into your hand. So it is a little bit expensive to be activating Azcanta every turn, but it does dig pretty deep to look for those extra turns or those fogs that can buy you a lot more time. The other thing is it works great with Teferi, which we'll get to in just a second. Then we have good old Dictate of Kruphix, the tried and true. It's a 3 mana enchantment with flash. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. The flash means it works really great with our counter spells like Absorb. So you can decide if your opponent plays something worth countering, you can counter it, and if they don't, you can get your engine online and try to start going off. Next up, we have 2 Planeswalkers. The first is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. He's a 4 mana Planeswalker with the Laboratory Maniac ability. If you would draw from your library while it's empty, instead you win the game. His +1 is mill 2 cards, draw a card, or target player mills 2 cards, draw a card. Usually you just mill yourself, given that you're trying to deck yourself so that you can win the game. And his -8 is draw 7, and then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. It has that specific rider in case Jace has exactly 8 loyalty and you ultimate him, he would go to the graveyard, and so his static ability of the Laboratory Maniac effect would no longer apply, meaning you would draw your 7 cards, have decked yourself, and since Jace isn't on the battlefield to make you win the game, you would lose. That's why it has that rider. It basically just says draw 7 cards, and if your deck's empty, you win the game. And finally, we have Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. He's kind of expensive at 5 mana, but in reality, he basically costs 3 because his +1 is draw a card. Then at the beginning of your next end step, you untap 2 lands. So usually what happens with untapping 2 lands is that gives you the mana to use Fog. But it can do things like give you the mana to use Dictate of Kruphix, give you the mana to hold up a counterspell, give you the mana to cast a Growth Spiral. And like I said before, it can untap Azcanta, which means in the late game, you can activate Azcanta plus your Teferi and then untap Azcanta and activate it again on your opponent's turn, looking 8 cards deep to find your Fog or your extra turn or whatever it is. So very, very powerful. Then Teferi's -3 is put target non-land permanent into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. So it's really nice that this is interaction because one thing that you'll notice about Jace, Wielder of Mysteries and also Dictate of Kruphix and also Search for Azcanta is they do not interact with the opponent at all. So it's nice that one of our Howling Mine effects can also double as a removal spell when it needs to. And then Teferi's -8 basically says you win the game. It says you get an emblem with whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent and opponent controls. So basically I've never ultimated Teferi and lost because you can effectively control the entire board and then wipe all of your opponent's lands. So the opponent needs to have something really crazy going on for it to not win the game. And so you'll notice that the total number of engines we're playing, which is 12, is considerably higher than I normally play in Modern, which is about 8. And that's partially because the cantrips in Pioneer are significantly worse than in Modern. Consider and Growth Spiral just aren't as good as Serum Visions. And also it's partially because you just need to have more engines on board because your extra turn effects aren't as good. They exile themselves and there's no Snapcaster Mage, which means you can't do something like Snapcaster Time Warp and then use your Jace the Mind Sculptor and bounce your Snapcaster Mage and then use Time Warp again. Really, these 10 extra turn effects are never going to get recycled, so that's all you've got. So the first extra turn effect isn't even an extra turn effect at all. It's Fog, which is a 1 mana instant that prevents all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it works really well with the Planeswalkers, especially Teferi. You slam your Teferi on turn 5, you plus him, and he untaps the green source that you need to cast your Fog. But also just in a format as creature-based as Pioneer, Fog often acts as an extra turn because often what the opponent is trying to do is get their creatures on board so that they can attack you for a bunch and then kill you. But in this type of taking turns deck, you really don't care about what their board is. You just don't want it to hurt you, and then you're good. One thing that's really important to note when you're putting Fog in your deck is that Pioneer has a few cards that are hard counters to Fog. Those are Stomp and Questing Beast, and to a lesser extent Skullcrack. They all say damage can't be prevented, which means Fog is just a blank piece of cardboard. So you have to be really careful when playing against those red and green decks where you expect a Stomp, which is the adventure side of Bonecrusher Giant, or when you expect a Questing Beast. Next in our extra turn suite, we have Part the Waterveil, which is a 6 mana extra turn, or for 9 mana, you can also turn one of your lands into a 6/6 with haste. So normally we're casting this for 6 mana, which is why there's only 2 of them in the deck. But on rare occasions, you'll get to awaken it, you'll get to animate one of your lands, and very often you'll be able to kill the opponent with that 6/6. If you have 10 mana, that means you can even attack with it the turn you cast Part the Waterveil, then it gives you another turn, which means you're coming in for 12. So it ends the game very, very quickly when you get to do that. And our last extra turn spell, which we have 4 of, is Alrund's Epiphany. This is a 7 mana extra turn that also creates 2 1/1 flying birds. And you can foretell it for 6 mana. Foretell meaning you can spend 2 mana to exile it from your hand face down. It's basically still in your hand, and you can cast it for its foretell cost of 6 mana, and then it just has the same effect. So foretelling is basically a way to invest in the future so that instead of paying 7 mana on a future turn, you'll pay 6. So these bird tokens are really powerful both on offense and on defense, especially when you're chaining the Alrund's Epiphanies together. On offense, the first one allows you to attack for 2. The second one allows you to attack for 4, so 6 total. The third one allows you to attack for 6, so 12 total. So that can very quickly spell the end of the game for your opponent. And on defense, they're really good at just chump blocking to keep your Jace and your Teferi alive. Or yourself if you need to chump block for your own sake. In terms of cantrips, we have Consider, which is a 1 mana instant that says Surveil 1, draw a card. So this is really good for filling up the graveyard for Search for Azcanta, also good for getting cards out of your library for Jace, and is also just good for finding the cards that you need. And then we have Growth Spiral. So this is one of the reasons to be playing green in addition to Fog. Growth Spiral in the early game is basically like taking an extra turn because all you really want to do is put a land onto the battlefield. So it lets you accelerate into, your Jace Wield of Mysteries on turn 3, your Teferi on turn 4, your extra turn on turn 5. So it is really one of the key cards to making this deck go fast. But what I've often found is that game 1 is more about implementing your own game plan, which is where Growth Spiral really shines. And then game 2 is more about slowing down the opponent. So it's less important to put all of your lands onto the battlefield as fast as you can, and more important to just stop your opponent from implementing whatever they're trying to do. So Growth Spiral is often a card that I cut for games 2 and 3, but it's still very, very good in game 1. And finally, in terms of interaction, we have 1 Jwari Disruption, which is a 2 mana force spike, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, or you can play it on its other side, which is land, very convenient. We have 2 Fateful Absence, which is a 2 mana destroy target creature or planeswalker, its controller creates a clue token, and 2 Absorb, which is a 3 mana counter spell, counter target spell, and you gain 3 life. So the 3 life here doesn't seem like much, but it can be very, very meaningful in tight races where your opponent is very close to killing you, especially against red decks that have burn direct damage. So it matters a lot more than you think. And the color requirements aren't too difficult. It basically just means that Boseiju doesn't cast Absorb, but the rest of the lands still do. In terms of the mana base, there's not too much interesting going on here. We have a lot of lands with basic land types between Spara's Headquarters, which we have 4 of, 4 Breeding Pool, 3 Hallowed Fountain, 2 Temple Garden, and those basic land types help us with our 3 Glacial Fortress and 2 Hinterland Harbor, which look for basic lands. They enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a land of the corresponding basic land type. We also have 3 Deserted Beach, which enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, so this is a slow land. 1 basic land, which is a plains, and then a few utility lands in Boseiju Who Endures, which is a pretty good naturalize effect. Otawara, the Soaring City, which is a 4 mana bounce effect. Hall of Storm Giants, which is one of the creature fast lands. If you control 2 or more other lands, it enters the battlefield tapped, so you want to play this one first if you can. And then for 6 mana, it becomes a 7/7 with Ward 3. Over in the sideboard, we have a few more removal spells in 2 March of Otherworldly Light. This is good against both creatures and miscellaneous artifacts and enchantments, like Pithing Needle, which can, be a thorn in your side when it's naming one of your planeswalkers, random cards like Fires of Invention, just overall very powerful card. We have 4 Supreme Verdict, which is a must against any creature deck. This is a 4 mana, can't be countered, destroy all creatures. So against basically any deck where the primary game plan is to put more than one creature onto the board, Supreme Verdict is very powerful against that. Then we have a few counter spells in 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Negate, 2 Mystical Dispute, 1 anti-control card in Sphinx of the Final Word. This is a 7 mana 5/5 flyer that can't be countered with hexproof. An instant and sorcery spells you control can't be countered. So the idea is against a control deck, they'll give you enough time to get to 7 mana. You'll slam the Sphinx of the Final Word, which can't be countered, and then all of your Alrund's Epiphanies and part the Waterveils and also all this other stuff are uncounterable. Note that it does not make your Planeswalkers and enchantments uncounterable, so the opponent still can go after your engines, but if you've got a 5/5 hexproof flyer, you're probably in good shape. And finally, a few utility spells. There's Damping Sphere, which is specifically for Lotus Field. This is a 2 mana artifact. If a land would be tapped for 2 or more mana, it instead produces colorless. So Lotus Field, which normally produces 3 mana, produces colorless instead. And each spell that a player casts costs 1 word cast for each other spell that players cast this turn. It also prevents them from kind of chaining a bunch of spells together in one turn from storming off. And Sunset Revelry is a 2 mana sorcery. If an opponent has more life than you, you gain 4 life. If an opponent has more creatures than you create 2 1/1s. And if an opponent has more cards in hand than you draw a card. Mostly we're looking at the gain life and create 2 1/1s mode, which are really good against red aggressive decks. And that's pretty much all that Sunset Revelry is in the sideboard for. If you like these videos and you'd like to support me, you can use the TCG player link in the description down below to pick up the cards that you're missing. And with that, let's jump right into the matches. Okay, here we are for match number 1. We've won the die roll. This hand's not amazing, but it does have an engine and an extra turn and a way to draw cards. It's a little light on land. We do have fogs. So I think I'm going to keep this. And I think my plan is I'm going to play Breeding Pool tapped with the expectation that we can on turn 2 consider into a land and then figure it out from there. Basically, the only other real thing we could do is foretell Alrund's Epiphany. Anyway, Hallowed Fountain from the opponent. And self-mill, interesting. Milling themselves 4 cards. Okay. I think I'm going to consider now and see if we draw into a tapped land. Play it tapped. Interesting. So opponent is a Gate to the Afterlife deck. Seen this before. They're going to bring back a 5/5. You know, there's that 2 mana reanimate now, isn't there? Ledger Shredder. Okay. Not too afraid of that. People really like Tarmogoyf, and Ledger Shredder feels to me very similar to Tarmogoyf in that I don't really care about it, but a lot of people think this is a very strong card. Certainly the fact that this card lets you loot makes it a smidge stronger than Tarmogoyf, and it has flying. Fiend Artisan, what is even happening right now? Oak Secret Keeper. This thing's really big, so I think our plan is we're going to try to play Jace when we can hold up Fog. It's nice that we found something to do this turn. But yeah, ideally we don't need to use Fog this turn, so that next turn we'll be able to go Jace Fog, and then the following turn we'll be able to go Alrund's Epiphany. But yeah, I do not know what the heck is going on the opposing side of the board here. All right, so it looks like they're activating this, looking for a CMC3 card. Do not know what types of cards they could have in their deck, but I'm scared. This could be anything. Extraction Specialist. Wow, extracting a 5/5 from the graveyard? Jeez. That is a sick wombo combo. Okay, so like I said, Ledger Shredder, not that scary, but 5/5, a lot more scary. Let's see here. So we do want lands, but we also want to fill up the graveyard. I think having the 6th land for this Alrund's Epiphany is too important. And then after that, I'm going to start binning lands. Anyway, oops. It is nice that Jace fills up the bin for Search for Azcanta. Growth Spiral might be useful in the future. But anyway, opponent might have an idea of what's going on, given that we just flipped a fog here. I am curious to see where the opponent attacks, if they're going to try to kill Jace or just go all for the face. It's like all... I think this was all face, right? Okay, all face. It's a good thing they didn't have a counterspell there. There's a Ledger Shredder. And Can't Stay Away. Bringing back Skyclave Apparition. Oh no! Dang it. This sucks. Bye, Jace. Okay. Yeah, need to put that in the bin. Okay, so one thing to consider is what if we Growth Spiral at upkeep? If we Growth Spiral at upkeep, that puts the 6th card into the graveyard, which will then allow us to activate Search for Azcanta and use Fog, so I think that might be worth it. Yeah, so basically, we Growth Spiral now with the Search for Azcanta trigger on the stack. Dictate. Okay, and then we basically need to flip Search for Azcanta here, so we'll put this in the graveyard and then flip it. Another interesting thing is between activating Search for Azcanta and playing Dictate, which one is more important? I think probably activating Search for... So the greedier play is to play Dictate because opponent has like less power than I thought. 2, 3, 11, 13, 15. So it is lethal. We can sacrifice some birds. But anyway, Dictate of Kruphix is the greedier play because it basically requires us to draw well, but the payoff is much better because if we draw into, for example, an Alrund's Epiphany, then we can cast it and also get benefit from Dictate, whereas we don't have enough mana to be activating Azcanta and also casting Alrund's Epiphany. So I think my play is to just pass the turn here. And given that the opponent does not have lethal right now, I'm tempted to just play Dictate and not even Fog, and also just chump block a little. Yeah, like I'm tempted to just chump the demon token here. 5, 10. I'm tempted to not even... Yeah, I'm gonna do no block, no fog. No block, no fog, no worries. We're getting greedy here, basically. Opponent doesn't have red or blue in their, or sorry, red or green in their deck, so they're not going to burn us out. Ooh, Gate to the Afterlife. So they're going to get a God-Pharaoh's Gift. How's this working? Or 6 or more creature cards in your graveyard. One is getting rid of Ledger Shredder. Got 2 creature cards currently. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go for the greedy play and play a Dictate here. Oh, wait, sorry. We should see what they get first. Stitcher's Supplier. Okay. Wow, and they milled 3 creatures? Are you serious? All right, well. Getting greedy. Jace, that's a nice one. Okay, that's also a nice one. Basically now... Get to Jace. Okay, Absorb is kind of cool. I think opponent's going in. And Fog. And I I think I'm going to activate Azcanta here because we desperately need an extra turn or a fog. There it is. Otherwise we would die. And opponent has given up. We weren't actually that likely to keep chaining extra turns, but sure, we'll take it. Okay, so Esper God-Pharaoh's Gift. So one of the awkward things is that we don't have a card like Rest in Peace that would be really good here. So I think we want March of Otherworldly Light. And then I think the opponent is going to have counterspells, so I feel like we want something like Negate. Not really sure about Sphinx of the Final Word yet. I don't think the opponent will give us time to play it, and I don't think that the opponent is going to have enough counterspells to justify it, but I could be wrong about that. And then I think Verdict is going to be good. Not sure about that, though. And then Fateful Absence, I think, is substantially worse than March of Otherworldly Light, so I think we don't need that. Jwari Disruption is not that good on the draw, and then let's trim a few Growth Spirals. So let's keep one more Growth Spiral and trim one Dictate, try it like that. So we'll still try to go with our game plan, just with a little bit trimmed Dictate, a little bit trimmed Growth Spiral, and yeah, hopefully these interactive spells will be able to slow the opponent down. Let's try it like that. Okay, here we are for game 2. We are going second. This hand looks pretty good. We've got an engine, we've got multiple forms of interaction. Go ahead and keep that one. We're going to lead on Spara's headquarters, and then after that, hold up March of Otherworldly Light for various amounts, I guess. Okay, or opponent's going to Thoughtseize us. One other consideration about mulliganing against a deck with swamps in it is that would a 6-card hand that gets Thoughtseized be better than the 7-card hand? The answer here is certainly not. But the answer for even, a medium 7-card hand is probably not. Probably it's better to just have the 7-card hand and get Thoughtseized. Ooh, that's a nice one. Probably it's just better to have a 7-card hand and get Thoughtseized than it is to have a 6-card hand to get Thoughtseized. But yeah, anyway, let's see where we're going with this. Caves of Koilos and Ledger Shredder for the opponent. Interesting that they took Arch and not Supreme Verdict. I guess they just want the creatures in the graveyard, which makes sense. But anyway, here's Search for Azcanta. See what the opponent's got. Talking a Hallowed Fountain into Raffine. Okay. Discarded a Ledger Shredder. Let's see. I think we want to land. Not going to put that in the graveyard. And then our plan is to next turn Supreme Verdict. Yeah, I think opponent could very easily just play something like God-Pharaoh's Gift here, or if they play another Thoughtseize, we're in a whole heap of trouble. Yeah, right now the plan... Okay, let's see. They discarded Cyclade Apparition, Fiend Artisan. Teferi. Fortunately, got to put you in the graveyard, buddy. Can't do anything with an Alrund's Epiphany right now. Here's a Verdict. Looks like the opponent had F6'd through that turn. That tells me they probably don't have counterspells. Anyway, they shock in a Watery Grave, and what are they up to? There's a Fiend Artisan. And an Extraction Specialist. Getting back Fiend Artisan. Search for Azcanta has got to go into the graveyard. Oh boy, we've got Absorb. But opponent is showing lethal. So actually need to play Teferi and minus in order to not die, which is like oh wait, this can't attack or block. Yeah, let's rethink that. Maybe we want to let's see. So what's going to happen? They're going to Fiend Artisan, sacrificing this thing, so then this thing can attack or block. Go up to 6 when we sacrifice the Extraction Specialist. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. What if we just foretell Alrund's Epiphany and then hold up Absorb? That we can try to absorb any spell they cast. try to draw a land next turn so that we can cast Alrund's Epiphany and then play Teferi with 2 blockers. Let's see, but what are they going to Fiend Artisan into? Probably going to take our Search for Azcanta with a Skyclave Apparition. That'll make it harder to draw a land, which will make that Alrund's Epiphany plan worse. Basically, I think Teferi minus is a losing line. So I think we're going to get greedier to try to Alrund's Epiphany, hold up Absorb. The other thing that would be really nice is if we draw a Fog. Because if we draw a Fog, then we just Teferi plus and then Fog at their upkeep. I guess Fog after attacks in case they attack with Fiend Artisan. Anyway, let's see what they do. Yeah, I need to read these new cards better. The whole can't attack or block thing is kind of weird. I guess it's carrying the Fiend Artisan just like it's carrying this little child. Personally, I feel like I would rather carry a small child around than a Fiend Artisan. I don't really know about you guys, but you know, whatever floats your boat. Okay, attacking with Extraction Specialist and Fiend Artisan. Interesting. So then they're going to use this one and yeah, okay. What the heck? Oh my god. They can't cast more than 1 spell each turn on basically. Ah, jeez. That's not a Fog, which we need a Fog to win the game right now, basically. So since we need Fog to win the game, I would rather get greedy and play Teferi looking for Fog rather than play Consider looking for Fog, and that's not it. All right, good game, opponent. Okay, well, I think Supreme Verdict is worth bringing in. At least it would have been real good that game. I feel like Negate is not that good. It seemed like the opponent is not very counterspell heavy. Think about bringing back Jwari Disruption. I'll put in Jwari Disruption over Consider. All right, let's try it like that. Okay, here we are for game 3. We are going first. This hand has no lands in it. Okay, this hand has a Supreme Verdict in it. So we're going to keep this and... oh, man. I really wish this was a 7-card hand. I think I'm going to have to get rid of Fog, but we could really use every single card that was in there. All right. Concealed Courtyard into looks like a Thoughtseize. Yep. Bummer. There goes our Supreme Verdict. Drawing more lands. There's a Ledger Shredder. All right, we'll foretell this Alrund's Epiphany. There's another Ledger Shredder. Please no 3rd land, please. Oh my god. And they are self-milling. Discarding. Wow, discarding. Oh my goodness. Definitely regretting keeping this many lands in hand. We need something, so. I feel like I've got to do this so that we can draw into something like a Jace and then a Fog or a Supreme Verdict. But we need something. This hand is not good enough. But yeah, if we had that Fog in hand, it would be kind of nice right now because then we would be able to go next turn Jace into Fog. But anyway, what does the opponent have in their graveyard? Quite a lot, it looks like. There is Rafine. So I think Jace is going to die. Yep, there's Secret Keeper. Wow, discarding Skyclave Apparition and land. They're planning on making a big Ledger Shredder. Okay. All right, let's draw Fog. That's not it. Would have been real nice to be able to cast Supreme Verdict last turn, or 2 turns ago, but oh well. Man, Connive 4 is like kind of crazy. This only has 1. Stitcher's Supplier. Can't stay away on Archon of Emeria. Oh my god. Yeah, that'll do it. Is there anything we can get? We can draw Fog. If we draw Fog, we'll be able to... That's not it. All right, good game. Okay, here we are for match number 2. We've won the die roll. Yeah, this hand is fine. We've got an extra turn. We've got some lands. We've got some engines. Let's go ahead and play a Temple Garden tapped. Pass it on over to the opponent. Spire Bluff Canal from the opponent. We'll play that Hall of Storm Giants and then foretell Alrund's Epiphany and hand it off to the opponent. Next turn, we'll probably just jam the Dictate. Let's see, consider from the opponent. So this is probably a Phoenix deck, if I had to guess. They did not bin their card. So River Glide Pathway and a Thing in the Ice. Drawn another land, which is not great. So Thing in the Ice might flip soon. Pieces of the puzzle from the opponent. Let's see, they've revealed 5 cards and they put Consider and Pieces of the Puzzle. Okay. Head and cast this Dictate. Jace Wielder of Mystery, huh? And Absorb, huh? I am a little bit scared of Thing in the Ice flipping. So I think I want to play Absorb and then next turn maybe go like Teferi minus on Thing in the Ice. So I'm going to just hold up Absorb here. That means I'll play Breeding Pool tapped and opponent. That consider. They did not bin their card, it looks like. I think Thing is probably flipping. Yeah, there's an opt. Treasure Cruise, I'll go ahead and absorb. Opponent has so many cards in hand right now, they're going to be discarding anyway. Yeah, don't absorb it. Yeah, I think I'll... I guess one of the keys about absorbing is it puts us at 23, which is 4 hits from a Thing in the Ice. Yeah, I'll go ahead and absorb. Definitely close, though. One consideration is that Teferi is probably going to die to something like a Strangle. So there's just not really anything we can do to save him from that. Because... Whoa. Lightning Axe get a... Wow. Okay. Okay, well that's cool. Now we can minus on Thing in the Ice. And then next turn, get some blockers with that Alrund's Epiphany that is in exile. Usually these decks don't run too many counterspells game 1 because they need to proactively play spells in order for Arclight Phoenix to do its thing. Piece of the puzzle and opt. Consider. Dang. So they're getting their other Phoenix back, which is okay. But good news is we're gonna get some blockers. Okay, and let's see if we can draw something good. Absorb is not quite what I had in mind. Fine. Gonna Teferi plus. This is not quite what I was thinking of. I think we would get something more meaningful, but it is. Puzzle. Flipping another Arclight Phoenix and a bunch of lands. Temporal Trespass. That one is not acceptable. Okay, they didn't even attack. Weird. It's like not that big of a deal. We don't need this Jace. It's not that big of a deal if their birds go into the graveyard. Interesting. The opponent has given up. Okay, so Phoenix. Supreme Verdict is interesting in that it kind of slows down the Phoenixes, but they can just come back because they're Phoenixes. So I don't think we want the full set, but then we do just want some counterspells. In general, they board into counterspells, so I think Sphinx at the Final Word is reasonable. And I'm not sure about Fateful Absence, because this is good against Thing in the Ice, but it's not really good against the Phoenixes. So I think instead maybe we want to cut these and add the 4th verdict. Jwari Disruption is bad on the draw. We'll get rid of growth spirals. Dictate is not exactly where we want to be in this matchup. I think we can trim maybe one fog, maybe one consider. Trim one consider. Try it like that. Okay, here we are for game number 2. We are going second. This hand is fine. We've got lands, we've got a Teferi, we've got a fog. Just go ahead and keep this. Team events tapped from the opponent. Start the Waterveil for us. We cannot hold up Mystical Dispute or anything, so hopefully they just don't play a Thing in the Ice, but if they do, we're in a bit of trouble. They do not. Nice. There's a Jace. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play this Spara's Headquarters tapped. And we can consider at their end step. Right now we're threatening Mystical Dispute. Looks like pieces of the puzzle is going to resolve. Strategic planning into their hand. Put one Arclight Phoenix. Okay, let's see what we can consider. Boseiju, not where we want to be. Jace, also not exactly where we want to be right now. Okay, land is what we want. What is the opponent going to do? Have a land, so it looks like, ooh, a Crackling Drake. Currently only a 1/4. So I think my plan, given that we have 2 Jaces in hand, is I'm going to play a Jace this turn, and then next turn cast a Teferi and have fog up. Ooh, who would have Supreme Verdict, but oh well. Yeah, because I think it's likely that Jace is going to die this turn, given that they'll strategic plan into either enough instants and sorceries to pump this, or into enough spells that they can bring back their Arclight Phoenix. It's currently a 3. Treasure Cruise. That's a good one. Currently a 4. Consider maybe a 5 or a 6. It's a 6. Are they just ignoring Jace? No. Okay. Rerouting to kill Jace. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so if the opponent has a counterspell, which is reasonably likely, we're probably just going to die. So sometimes you just have to accept the reality of the situation and let your opponent kill you. So let's see. They're currently looking at 10 power. So if they can put 7 more stuff into the graveyard, or if they can cast Temporal Trespass, which they just did, then we're dead. Good game. Okay, do we want to change anything for the next game? I think this is fine. Okay, here we are for game 3. We are going first. This hand is not great, but hopefully Search for Azcanta will allow us to find something good. So I'm going to keep this. And actually, this might be a cycle Spara's Headquarters kind of hand. So I'm actually going to keep this in hand and see if we're cycling it on turn 3. Because it might be Search for Azcanta turn 2, cycle Spara's Headquarters on turn 3, and then maybe foretell this on turn 4 or something. Find out. Hall of Storm Giants from the opponent. Just get our Search for Azcanta online. Mystical Dispute. Oh my god, I was not expecting that. Okay. Let's see, no Thing in the Ice from the opponent, so that's nice. Do a land. So I think this turn I'm going to foretell Alrund's Epiphany and then play Deserted Beach so that we can consider. But yeah, if we just keep drawing lands, I'm definitely going to cycle this thing. Consider and opt from the opponent. Opponent's leaving up a lot of mana. Just go ahead and consider. Opponent thinking about countering. Teferi is a spell, so I think we're going to want that one. All right, yeah, I guess I'll play Hall of Storm Giants and cycle Spara's Headquarters on the opponent's turn. The opponent taps out for something like Crackly Drackly. That'll be pretty nice for us because then we can Teferi and tuck it. There's the Crackly Drackly. Cycle this thing. Interesting. I think I want to keep this in hand, so I think I will spend 2 life to keep it in hand. Then let's hope that they can't kill Teferi. Treasure Cruise for the opponent. Right, they didn't kill Teferi. I am certainly a little bit worried about... Oh, wow, discarding Temporal Trespass. I'm certainly a little bit worried about counterspells, especially since we can now hold up Mystical Dispute and or Spell Pierce. So I'm just going to go ahead and play a tapped Hallowed Fountain and pass it on over to the opponent. Let's see, we were 1 short of activating Hall of Storm Giants, and we're 1 short of playing Alrund's Epiphany with 1 interaction up. There's a Crackly Drackly, and I don't think we want the opponent to have that. So they thought pretty hard about a counterspell, so I'm a little bit worried about if they have 2 counterspells. But I guess there's not really too much we can do about that, given the context of our hand. So I'm thinking next turn I want to try the Alrund's Epiphany with Spell Pierce backup, and if they have 2 counterspells, then... If I'd known we were drawing this, it would have changed things a lot. But can't always get what you want. Let's see if we can resolve this now. The opponent has like a negate or something. Nice. Nice, and the opponent has given up. I'll see you for the next match. Okay, here we are for match number 3. We've won the die roll. This hand looks pretty good. We got 3 lands, a fog, a bunch of engines. Gonna go ahead and keep this one. So we'll lead on Spara's headquarters into Hinterland Harbor, search for Azcanta, and then we'll figure it out from there. Lair of the Hydra from the opponent into Lawnmower Elves. This is the mono green devotion deck. They can often win the game very fast, and I'm also a bit scared of Questing Beast from them. I'm not sure if they run that card or not, but sometimes they run like what's her face, Vivian. Anyway, here's Nykthos from the opponent, and 3 mana. There is Kiora. That's annoying. Opponent has boatloads of mana now. Untapping Lawnmower Elves, and are they? Yeah, there's an Elvish Mystic. Okay, search for Azcanta. Ooh. We do want extra turns, but right now we need lands, because we need 2 more lands so we can hit Teferi plus Fog. Yeah, we're just too far away from Alrund's Epiphany right now, as much as it pains me to put that in the yard. I'm going to go ahead and hurt myself on a Hallowed Fountain so we can cast this Dictate. No, it's not great to give the opponent extra cards, but hopefully we can draw into something. And plus, like I said, we need to draw into lands so that we can execute our game plan. And hopefully we can draw into fogs or, you know, more extra turns. But yeah, right now this is looking pretty dangerous if the opponent has any kind of payoff, because they're looking at, let's see, Nykthos generates, right now it's mana neutral, but if they add any more green pips to the battlefield, then Nykthos will generate mana. It basically costs 2 plus tapping Nykthos, basically 3 mana to generate mana equal to your devotion. Their devotion is currently 3. So they play a lot of cards like Cavalier of Thorns, or there's that new troll that I forgot the name of, that just have a lot of green mana symbols in them. The other thing that would be a pain in the butt is the 4 mana Karn that can fetch artifacts, because that thing can get Statue of the God-Pharaoh or just Pithing Needle or other really annoying stuff that we don't want to see. Anyway, they're doing a nice long think here. 3 mana into Old Growth Troll. This is the one I was thinking of. So yeah, now their Nykthos taps for a lot. So if they go land, Kiora, untap, Nykthos, they have 5 mana. cheese and rice. Oh, 6 mana. Did I miscount? 1, 4, 5, 6. I did miscount. 3 plus 3 is 6. There's a Cavalier of Thorns. Wonder if maybe I don't want to cast this Dictate. Maybe I just want to play, or maybe I just want to cycle Spara's Headquarters instead and get another card in the yard for this search for Azcanta. Feeling like that's what I want to do. Anyway, Cavalier of Thorns reveals a bunch of cards, puts some stuff into the graveyard. Nothing with flashback, so that's good. See, this only puts lands onto the battlefield, right? Okay, yeah, I think my plan is I'm just going to cycle Spara's Headquarters and try to flip search for Azcanta faster. But unfortunately, we need Spara's Headquarters to find another land or something. Right, well, hopefully Consider can help us. Consider drawing into a land. Fog is a card we want, but unfortunately not a land. That's a land. I'm going to go ahead and Consider now in case we draw a tapped land. Not put Breeding Pool into the grave. Okay, now the plan is to cast Dictate this turn. We're going to take, what, 5, 9, 10, maybe up to 11 damage. But we're not going to die. So we're going to play the Dictate, and the next turn we're going to go to Teferi, hold up Fog. But yeah, if the opponent does something like, you know, get this Karn back somehow, then we're in a heap of trouble. There's another Cavalier of Thorns. 4 mana floating, and Kiora can... Okay. Nykthos. 6, 9. They've got 12 mana. Yeah, they can get so much mana so fast in this deck. Luckily, Supreme Verdict tends to be pretty okay. 16 mana. Untapped Nykthos. Topiary Stomper. Okay. Finds a basic land. Can't attack or block unless they control 7 or more lands. So I think they're just making a big board, which is a lot better than doing something like getting a Karn and putting a God-Pharaoh's thing onto the battlefield. A Topiary Stomper. Wolf Willowhaven. 10 mana. Oh god. 25 mana. Karn. Okay, I think that's game over then. Let's see what they reveal. I'm curious. What is this card? What in the world? Restorative Birth. Interesting. Okay. So they put another Kiora and another Karn into their hand. Alright. Like... This is turn 4, by the way. Is this actually reasonable? Alright, yeah, I'm willing to concede to God-Pharaoh statue. Okay, so Supreme Verdict is good. Spell Pierce and Negate are fine. Actually don't really like Damping Sphere against them. The reason is this only hits Nykthos, and they can operate fine without Nykthos. In terms of stuff to get rid of, Jwari Disruption. I like March of Otherworldly Light on the play, actually. And then let's get rid of some Kruphix here. Better visualize what's going on here. These 9 in, these 4 out. Do kind of want to go fast is the issue. So we kind of want Growth Spiral, but we also just want all of these. I think we need to trim some Growth Spiral and trim a couple Consider. And March of Otherworldly Light I like on the play but not the draw because it hits their elves. So I guess when we're on the draw we can... Yeah, let's try it like this. Not super certain about cutting all these Considers, but I feel like we need to go fast, so I feel like we need some Growth Spirals. Okay, here we are for game number 2. Sure, I'll take Spell Pierce and Negate. Opponent has mulled to 5. So I think turn 1 they're most likely to play Lanoir Elf, and the only spell pierceable spell they would play is Oath of Nissa, and I don't think I would hit it. So if they play Llanowar Elf, which they did, I'm now going to shock myself to hold up Negate for, ooh, search for Azcanta. Nah, I think we need Negate. Go ahead and hurt myself here. Dude, I guess I should have played a blue source, but whatever. Small details. But yeah, basically I wanted to negate instead of Spell Pierce, so that next turn we can now search for Azcanta and also hold up Spell Pierce for a potential Karn or something. Elf. Taking one. Looks like this turn we're gonna play search for Azcanta, hold up Spell Pierce. If they play like a Karn or like a... This is brutal having Spell Pierces and Negates against the all creature draw. There's a Nykthos, so that sucks. Alright, search for Azcanta. What do you got? A land that we don't need. So Fateful Absence would have been nice earlier. The thing that's annoying about fatefully absenting the Cavalier is they'll be able to get something back. Shoot, maybe I should have done that anyway so that their Nykthos wouldn't have been as good. Didn't really think about that. Probably should have thought harder because now they have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So I'm just never going to be able to Spell Pierce anything. Negate Karn. Then hopefully they just try to play another Karn again or something like that. They do only have one card in hand. Is what we've got going for us. Sylvan Caryatid, their last card. 7. What you got for us? Search for Azcanta. Jace. We'll not put Jace in the graveyard. Then that'll allow us to Jace hold up Fog. Oh my god. God-Pharaoh statue enters the card zone. Are they a mana short? I am wrong. They are not a mana short. But luckily we can poke it. Poke. Fortunate that Jace is dying here, but the good news is we might be able to flip search for Azcanta. We'll flip search for Azcanta. Activate this. That if we find the other search for Azcanta, have it available. Let's see. Ooh. Get a Supreme Verdict. The issue with Supreme Verdict is Cavalier of Thorns. So I think what we're going to need to do instead is get Alrund's Epiphany. I think we need to get Alrund's Epiphany, kill Karn now so that they cannot get another can't get another stupid artifact. And then Fog so that we don't die. After that, we're going to need to draw real well. But, you know, there are possibilities. We can draw into, like, Teferi into a Fog, or, like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Crack the clue. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 mana available. Jeez. All right, opponent drawing straight gas with this Cavalier of Thorns. This is exactly lethal, my god. Because if we could save this Fog for later, would, but can't, so we won't. That's a start. So now if we can just draw something like Teferi, we're going to be in some pretty decent shape. All right, show us a Teferi off the top, please, deck. Ooh, that's not it. Let's use search for Azcanta. not really too much we can find. Even Supreme Verdict isn't good because of Cavalier of Thorns. So I think we can cycle Spara's headquarters. And then if we draw either Teferi or... The unfortunate part is I'd really like to search for Azcanta looking for Teferi or Jace, but then we won't be able to play it and also have Fog. So I think the play here is to cycle Spara's headquarters, and then if we find Jace or Teferi, we get to play it and have Fog up. Then if we don't, we will, at our opponent's end step, activate Azcanta, and in the meantime we have Fog. And unfortunately, we can't even attack with the bird tokens because this stupid thing has reach. Oh my god. Is the opponent just drawing constant gas? Or is this just a lair of the Hydra? Oh. So they flipped a Storm Festival. I missed that. Yeah, geez, drawing Cavalier of Thorns is like kind of insane. Okay, luckily their hits on that are pretty bad. Still have one card in hand. 2/2 Lair of the Hydra. I think my play here is see what we draw first. And now that we have Chumping Birds. Ooh, okay, here's a part of the Waterveil. 7/8. Oh, so close. It's gotta be part the Waterveil and see if we can draw a land to get a 6/6. I think I am just going to chump with the birds and go down to 5. I don't think we're chaining enough extra turns together here to... I'd rather hold both Fog and March of the Otherworldly Light. Okay. Gosh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have used... whatever. Basically just want to cycle this at this point. This doesn't have reach, right? Okay, so we can take 2 damage here to make a 6/6, which I think I'm going to do. Actually, I think I'm going to make it green. Yeah, I think I'm going to have it be a green and white source, so that will hold up both of these. We're getting in for 2. Okay, nice Spell Pierce that does nothing. Right, well, I think the game plan is let's activate Search for Azcanta. Try to find a Teferi or a Jace. Find Alrund's Epiphany. Okay. Sell. Foretell this, hold up stuff, and we'll try to get some damage in. Yeah, it's interesting. I might have been wrong here about not being able to push through damage. We just need the opponent to have drawn 2 blanks. That's all we're looking for is 2 blanks. I don't think they have another flashback spell in the graveyard. Okay, let's see here. We are real close, to be honest. Definitely thinking that chump blocking turn could have gone better. So, play Alrund's Epiphany. How much mana we have. Can't exactly get rid of... Basically, I'm worried about attacking my 6/6 into a bunch of creatures that fuck, so yes, I won't. Now, I think we need a bunch of chump blockers. I think I'm going this. That's interesting. I think we're more likely to need the mana, though, to be honest, than we are to need the bounce ability. Could be wrong. Might be a mistake. I think these two March of Otherworldly Lights are also going to be really important. In terms of fogs, let's take a quick look. We've got 2 fogs in the graveyard, which means 2 left, and we've used 4 extra turn spells. Means there's 2 left. Spell Pierce is looking really embarrassing. Lair of the Hydra, X9. Lair of the Hydra. So here, don't actually have, let's move to blocks. So Temple Garden here, bird chumps. This does not trample, right? Yeah. Bird chumps. And then I believe with March of Otherworldly Light here. Yeah, March of Otherworldly Light here. We'll be taking exactly 2, going down to 1. This has trample, this does not. Unfortunately, we'd like to get rid of the vigilance thing, but we can't. Block like that. That thing. It's always such an adventure to cast one of these marches on Magic Online. Forgot about this ability. What does it do? Makes a land stuff. Okay, great. See what we can find. Alrund's Epiphany will do it. Nice. Let's go ahead and cast this thing. Cool. Okay, so Spell Pierce looked pretty embarrassing that game, but I still feel like it's important for preventing those really early like turn 2 Kioras or turn 3 Karns that can really get out of control. Maybe it's worth cutting though, I'm not sure. I don't feel like our other cards are substantially better. I do think maybe we want 1 more Growth Spiral because maybe we just want to be like Sanic the Hedgehog and go fast. So let's try taking out a Dictate and putting in a Growth Spiral. We'll rely heavily on our Planeswalkers, or just like last time, just getting to part the Waterveil Awaken or having a bunch of Alrund's Epiphany. Let's go ahead and try it like that. Okay, here we are for game 3. We are going second. Sand is fine. We'll go ahead and keep it. All right, opponent has mulled to 6. And the elf. They always have the elf on turn 1. All right, I am going to cast Consider on turn 1, so we'll just go ahead and use a Hall of the Storm Giants. So Wolf Willow Haven. Smacking us for 1. Okay, I'm going to put this in the yard. I think we just want more cards in the yard for Search for Azcanta. There's a Teferi. I'm thinking let's just get that elf off the battlefield. Okay, there's a Boseiju from the opponent. Got 4 mana to work with, and they're not casting anything. Makes me a little bit worried about a potential Cavalier next turn, but nothing we can do about that. So here's a Search for Azcanta and Spara's headquarters. Tapping Boseiju for mana. This is looking like a Cavalier to me. Yep, it's a Cavalier. Man, if this had been a Growth Spiral, then we would have been able to Teferi and tuck this. Rough, yeah. Let's see, what did they hit? Wow, is that no land? They did hit a Storm the Festival, though. That's going to be brutal once they reach their boatloads of mana, but yeah, that's very funny. No land. So we could Supreme Verdict, but then they get to get something back. See, this puts it on top of their library, not into their hand. Basically, I'm thinking that if they Cavalier and they put one of these cards on top, they're spending a turn not drawing a land. So even though, you know, putting Elvish Mystic or Sylvan Caryatid or Kiora or Boseiju will net them a mana, it's like, well, the Boseiju is a one-shot like before, so that doesn't really do too much for them. But they're not getting another land on the battlefield, so I think it's okay to Supreme Verdict this. Not put Supreme Verdict into the yard. Then Hallowed Fountain. Let's blow this popsicle stand. Because they might not even put a thing on top. Since given that at 4 mana. Okay, they're putting Boseiju on top. All right, and if what they have is another Cavalier, that's not too bad for us, because then we get to do the Teferi minus thing, like I wanted to do last time. Yeah, okay. This is not so bad. Okay, this time they've got Nykthos, which kind of sucks, but tucking this means Nykthos won't make that much mana. Not want Growth Spiral. Guess that goes in the graveyard. Otawara. I think I just want to save the 2 life right now. I'm pretty sure we're going to end up using this as a land rather than bounce ability. Pretty sure. Get out of here, Cavalier. Oh no. Probably have a Pithing Needle. Needle's super annoying. Hopefully we can draw Boseiju or other March. Let's see. Yeah, gonna bin this because we just want to transform Search for Azcanta. Another one anyway. Gonna bin almost anything. Yeah, certainly this useless Teferi. And yes, we will transform. Cast Alrund's Epiphany. Do want more mana. So while we can kill Karn using Hollow Storm Giants, we can also play Jace and hold up Absorb and attack Karn. Holding up Absorb. Issue is Jace can get attacked, and this is by this thing. Oh wait, no, I thought this was a lair of the Hydra. Okay, never mind. Take that back. I just want to bring Karn down to 2 so that, or sorry, down to 1, so that he cannot fetch another artifact, and then we'll have Absorb up, and if we don't absorb, then we can Azcanta. So, pretty good. They're going at Karn. Karn plus on nothing. All right. Go ahead and use Search for Azcanta. Alrund's Epiphany it is. Running low on time. Headquarters, sure. Selves. Go for the face first, and then whenever we run out of turns, which is probably very, very soon, then we'll kill Karn. Play Deserted Beach. Wait this thing. Face, face. Face. Looking good. Okay, now we have lethal on board, and we've got our Absorb up for any one spell that the opponent could have. And if they don't have that, then we can Azcanta. All of Storm Giants doing work. Whoops, that's not the mana I need. All right, I'll see you for the next match. Okay, here we are for match number 4. We have lost the die roll. This hand looks okay. It has lands, a Planeswalker, some early interaction, and a Fog. It's missing a green source, but I'm going to keep it anyway. Opponent has mulled to 6. Plan is lead on Hallowed Fountain. The turn after that, Glacial Fortress, hold up Fateful Absence. Breeding Pool from the opponent. Here's our tapped Hallowed Fountain. Aether Hub. Interesting. Was not expecting that. 1 energy from the opponent. Thoughtseize. I wasn't expecting that at all. This is... I don't even know what's going on here. Alright, there goes Teferi. Yes. Glacial Fortress, hold up Fateful Absence. Not gonna main phase consider because we might need to cast Fateful Absence next turn for some reason. I don't know. Do that. Looks like our opponent is on some kind of Sultai energy deck. I don't think we want Hall of Storm Giants right now. Fortunately, we don't have a green source for this growth spiral. The Jace. I don't have a green source for this fog either. I believe there are 13 green sources in the deck, so we've gone through nearly a fourth of the deck without seeing one, which is pretty interesting. Still not sure what's going on. I am going to cast this Dictate, though, because I do want to draw into things, like green sources. Okay, there's a Teferi, which is nice, but we could use some extra turns, we could use some lands. Really don't know what's going on the opponent's side of the board. I was half expecting them to counter this. Okay, there's an extra turn. That's something. Really don't know what's happening on the opponent's side of the board. Cemetery. Abrupt Decay. Dictate. Okay. Some kind of Sultai energy mid-range. There's a Servant of the Conduit. Just not especially scary. There's Attune with Aether. Grabbing a forest. I'm just so confused. Land, please. Nice. Jace. Knock myself on this Temple Garden to bury out there. And then we'll have up both Fog and Consider. The other thing we could think about is Fateful Absencing this Servant of the Conduit, but I just don't think it's a threat. So I think we really care. Now here's an interesting choice. Do we hold up Fog Consider or Consider? I just don't think the opponent's going to attack us, so I'm going to hold up Consider. Or sorry, going to attack us with anything more than a Servant of the Conduit. Wow, they're going for the face. Alright, so we could use an untapped land for this part, the Waterveil. That's not an untapped land. That's also not an untapped land. That is not an untapped land, but it is a land, so maybe I keep it as a consolation prize. No, let's get greedy. Nah, there's no need to get greedy. I'll keep it as a consolation prize. Okay. Also not an untapped land. Let's use Jace. Nope. Let's use Fairy. Okay, untapped land. So now the question is, do they have a counterspell? I'm going to go with probably not. Really don't know what's going on the other side of the board, but I think energy decks tend not to have counterspells and tend to use, yeah, there we go. Tend to use blue for, I forgot the name of it. I think it's like Refiner or something. Anyway, here's an end step growth spiral, courtesy of Teferi. Okay. Okay. There we go. Now we're talking. Right, and I don't think we're ever going to Jwari Disruption. No matter what we untap, and let's get rid of a fog. That. I'll keep Jace around for one more turn so that we can do a sick play next turn, which is ultimating Teferi and ultimating Jace in that order. Just casually exile 7 of the opponent's cards. Permanents, excuse me. Nice. I guess there was an argument for milling the opponent so that I could see more of their deck, because right now I still just don't know what they're doing, but whatever. Okay. Well, we were going to obliterate the opponent's entire board anyway. So I'm very confused about the opponent's deck. I don't exactly know what's in it. I'm assuming it might be an Aethworks Marvel deck, so I'm going to put a Negate in, but my general strategy against decks where I don't know what they're doing is to just not board that much. Maybe one Supreme Verdict will be good. I don't know if this Fateful Absence was good. It only had one target that we saw. So like maybe just some light sideboarding like this. And we'll adjust it in game 3 once we have a better idea of what the heck the opponent is doing. One consideration also is Sphinx of the Final Word if the opponent has a lot of counterspells, but maybe they're just on Thoughtseizes. Okay, here we are for game number 2. Unfortunately, one land is not enough, and we have to mulligan. Okay, this is enough lands. Go ahead and keep that one. And yeah, with these 2 growth spirals in hand, we definitely want to have as many lands as possible. There was even an argument for not for keeping both Alrund's Epiphanies and bottoming a growth spiral, but okay, now I'm regretting my choice a little, but you know, whatever. Anyway, there's a Servant of the Conduit from the opponent, and we'll see what the heck happens after this. Thoughtseize, huh? Well, there goes Alrund's Epiphany. Flint Sleeve Siphoner. Okay, so opponent's deck seems creature mid-rangey, so I'm thinking that Supreme Verdict is good. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and play Jace here because at least on board, the opponent can't kill it. They can attack it for 4, and it'll go up to 5. And then, you know, if we draw Supreme Verdict, or if we draw Fog, or if we draw something good, then potentially we can do a card which costed 2 Ener Johnsons, so 0 energy left. Assassin's Trophy. Fortunately, there is only 1 basic land card in the deck, but luckily it's in there. So I am now wishing that one of these growth spirals was an Alrund's Epiphany, but what can you do? Sleeve Siphoner, siphoning up some energy. Whoops. Play that one. I meant to play Growth Spiral, but oh well, whatever. All right. Now let's just try to draw something good, I guess. Rogue Refiner. That's the one I was thinking of. I think this is really the only reason they're playing blue. It looks like maybe they have sideboard counterspells, but it looks like they're primarily a black-green mid-range Nerd Johnson deck. What we got here. Start by considering. Like that card. Play this. And I think the one reason we would want to Boseiju is, oh, they do have counterspells. Okay. The one reason we would want to Boseiju is if the opponent has we're kind of low on life. Anyway, if the opponent has Aetherworks Marvel, hit that, which is why I'm keeping it in hand. But anyway, that's what we got here. So we're going down to 7, which is, sorry, we're taking 7, going down to 5, which is kind of not a lot. Verdict? No. Okay, well, should have played this first to play around Mystical Dispute. But anyway, now that we can draw additional cards per turn, I am going to play Boseiju, so that if we draw another land, we can get more lands onto the battlefield. All right, I'm going to play Jace, and then if... Ooh, actually... 1, 2, 3, 4... 9. Change my mind. We're going to cast with Awaken. I very rarely Awaken on defense, but that looks like what's going to be going on here. Okay, that worked. So, okay. All right, Jace, show me something good. Nope, that's not something good. Would have liked that Fog. So opponent did have Aetherworks. Okay, well. See what they spin into. Okay, well, we're not strictly dead yet. losing our birds. Because we need to jump, one. The fact that we have an engine on board means there's a chance. It's a very small chance because Ulamog means our fogs don't work anymore. That's a blank and we're dead. Okay, very interesting deck. Yeah, I'm thinking let's get rid of the Fateful Absence. Let's go Supreme Verdict. I feel like 3 Growth Spiral is probably enough. We're mostly just trying to go fast. And mostly just trying to beat the opponent before they can cast Ulamog. Let's go ahead and try it like that. Okay, here we are for game number 3. We are going first. Yeah, this hand is missing a green source, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Also not sure how important the life is versus the... It's not super important. Or... I think the life might be important, excuse me. So I'm going to put in the Hallowed Fountain tapped. This looks like a Thoughtseize from the opponent. Alrund's Epiphany is saying bye. They part the Waterveil. That's what I'm going to consider in case we find Spara's headquarters. Not want another land. Breeding pool. Opponent, I'm going to go ahead and Growth Spiral now in case we hit Search for Azcanta. We do not. Play this tapped, play this untapped. Oh, there we go. Let's see what the opponent does. Cemetery. They're just passing the turn. Goodness. Play a tapped Breeding Pool and pass back to the opponent, holding up Absorb. Tune with Aether. Not going to counter this. I think there's just too many cards the opponent could have that basically I think there's too many cards the opponent could have that we would actually want to counter with Absorb, like an Aetherworks Marvel, for example. And I think it's just too likely that the opponent had another land sitting in there and a tune with Aether was just a bait. Okay. I don't really want to play Part the Waterveil until we can either awaken it or the opponent is not holding up a counterspell, preferably both. Bristling Hydra. I think I'll just Verdict that. In fact, I might not even need to Verdict that, given that we have Hall of Storm Giants. One concern then is if I activate Hall of Storm Giants, that's only 1 2-mana open. So then we don't have Absorb up anymore. And then if the opponent has Assassin's Trophy, that would be really annoying. Yeah, I'm feeling like not verdicting and seeing if the opponent commits more to the board. We're at a pretty healthy 20 life, so I don't really mind just taking 4 or 5 damage here. And like the opponent might not even attack because this is a little bit intimidating. Say no to that. Oh, okay. I think I'm willing to take 1 more hit from the Bristling Hydra before casting Supreme Verdict. Maybe shouldn't even have foretold that now that I'm thinking about it. Oh well, too late now. But basically, this puts us off of Hall of the Storm Giant. Interesting. Opponent, I think, miscounted our mana. We cannot activate this. Let's see. I don't think Ward is going to save this here. My understanding of Ward is that it needs to have been active when it was targeted. All right, so we do have 9 mana, which is enough for Alrund's Epiphany plus Absorb. I'm thinking of waiting 1 more turn Thinking of Supreme Verdicting now, waiting one more turn to see if the opponent taps out more. I want to consider and look for a land. All right, I've changed my mind, so I'm going to Verdict this turn, hold up Absorb, see what the opponent does, see if they commit more to the board. And then I think probably next turn, try to Alrund with Foretell plus Absorb. I have right now exactly 9 mana, so exactly enough. Yeah, I'm still just kind of confused about what the opponent's up to over there. Are they just building up towards Ulamog? This is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they are kind of close to literally just hard casting Ulamog. So I'm going to pull the trigger before that. That's rough. We don't have another basic land. Shuffle our library. All right, well now this whole plan is a lot worse. So instead I'm going to Jace. Cast Jace rather. Pass to the opponent. Swift End. Okay. Undo it. Rider. Okay, they only have 1 green mana open. Sorry, blue mana open. Which means this is gonna resolve. Them some bird. Supreme Verdict. Nice, but not quite what we're looking for. See, I think what we want to do is attack with a 6/6. Murderous Rider in front, that makes sense. In there. Again, makes sense. And we put the nail in the coffin. Not quite. Cycle this. All right, well, Teferi's cool. Cast him. Draw. Okay, I mean, cool cards. Scary, thought I clicked through my attack step. You want to get this attack in. It's important that the opponent is dead next turn. Now, notably, even if they do cast Ulamog, they are dead. Aetherworks Marvel, they need something really incredible to survive here. Nice. I think Emrakul might have been the one, because then they would Supreme Verdict, kill our own stuff, Teferi tuck himself. So would have been bad for us, but I think we still would have come out on top. Anyway, I'll see you for the last match. Okay, here we are for the 5th and final match. We've lost the die roll, but we have Search for Azcanta, Alrund's Epiphany, some early interaction, and Absorb. This is going to be a keeper. And let's see what the opponent is up to. It would be nice if we were going first. Okay, Boseiju into Arboreal Grazer. This looks like it's the Lotus Field deck, probably. Yeah, into Temple of Mystery. Jeez. That is a fast start from the opponent. Growth Spiral from us. That's good, but I don't think it's going to be good enough. Sylvan Scrying. Counter that. There's a Lotus Field, which they played. So for those of you who don't know, this deck is based around Lotus Field, which taps for 3 mana, and then you can use this land called Thespian Stage to copy Lotus Field, so you have 2 lands. Let's see, this isn't going to do anything. You have 2 lands that tap for 6 mana, and then you can use untap effects to just really go off. Anyway, let's see, we can either search for Azcanta here, or we can Growth Spiral here. Ultimately, really the only important part is that we can hold up Absorb next turn, which we can do either way. The opponent usually can't win with only a Lotus Field, so I think I'm going to go for Search for Azcanta so that we can bin 1 more card. But But yeah, next turn we're going to have to just play Glacial Fortress, hold up Absorb. Anyway, there's an island from the opponent. And nothing else. Okay, search for Azcanta. We will eventually need Alrund's Epiphany, but it might be a little too early. It's one of those things where I'm not sure if we're actually going to reach Alrund's Epiphany, and we already have one in hand. But at the same time, if we start going off, it's a key player. I'm going to keep it and possibly regret that decision. All right. So I'm not going to foretell because we need to hold up Absorb. All right, nothing from the opponent. This is go ahead and growth spiral here. We don't want to dictate because we don't want the opponent to draw into more stuff. A land is good because it lets us Alrund's Epiphany, foretell rather, and hold up Absorb. So I'm not going to bin that. And consider, also not going to bin that. I think we're probably going to cast it. Well, we're either going to cast Absorb or we're going to cast Consider probably. I'm also going to set a stop at our upkeep because if we need to absorb something on the opponent's turn and then consider on our turn to flip search for Azcanta, then we can. All right, let's see. Vizier of Tumbling Sands cycle from the opponent. So this is card neutral but mana positive. They're at 6 cards in hand with a single blue mana floating. Up to 4. This island makes 5. Okay, there they go with another Vizier. So they're at 6 mana right now. Okay, Vizier again. A lot of Viziers. Mechanical Sanctum. Like a big spell. Pour over the pages. Pour over the pages is actually mana negative right now. Have black, black, blue left. I don't think the opponent can do too much on black, black, blue with these lands, so I think I'm gonna counter this and basically have their Viziers be wasted. They just generated this mana that hopefully won't be able to do anything. Oh no, made a mistake. Hidden Strings and have Pour Over the Pages again. So normally you need 2 Lotus Fields because right now their Hidden Strings was +2 mana and their Pour Over the Pages was... Oh, well there's their other Lotus Field. Okay, so we're going to bin basically anything that is not an untapped land. Fortunately, that counts as tapped land. So basically the question is, can we survive next turn? The biggest thing we have going for us is we can consider into a counterspell. Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to just pass the... I could consider now and see if we hit a land. Do that. Okay. I'm not going to foretell Alrund's because I'd rather cast Dictate, and I'm going to fake... I'm going to bluff that we have a counterspell and see if the opponent doesn't do anything. So 3 cards isn't a lot, but they have their setup. So a Growth Spiral, that's an interesting one. Okay, so they don't have it. Play this Dictate. Honestly, maybe I shouldn't have, now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't want Jace. We will transform. Let's see here. Just want to... We basically just want to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. So next turn we'll get to Jace and Foretold Alrund's, so that's pretty sweet. Let's see if the opponents forget about the grabby girls. These have reach, so they can block, but okay, the opponent remembered. Okay. Some pretty good draws. This. And this. Jace. Mill ourselves. Definitely had some very lucky draws here. Okay, that's at least some kind of interaction, although it sucks, to be frank. I think we're going to activate thing. Part the Waterveil is a good one. Play to land, right? Go ahead and wakey wakey, eggs and bakey. This is looking pretty lethal now if we just animate all of the Storm Giants. Nice. Okay, so this is not a removal matchup and not a fog matchup, and instead is a Damping Sphere and Counterspells matchup. And then I think we can probably cut maybe one Dictate. We don't really want to give them extra cards. Are they going to have counterspells, actually? We might not want Sphinx of the Final Word if we don't expect them to have counters. I don't think they're really going to have many counters. I think their primary focus is going to be their own game plan. So I think we can keep our plan A while having a bunch of interaction. All right, like that. Okay, here we are for game number 2. We are going second. If this hand had one more land that was a green source, I would probably keep it. If we could turn one of these planeswalkers into a green source. But it's way too risky to keep in the absence of that. So got a mulligan. Yeah, not happy about this one, but I guess we'll keep it. So I'll put Alrund's Epiphany to the bottom. We're still looking for, let's see. It's multi 5. So we're still looking for counterspells with this Consider. And Teferi just happens faster than put ourselves on the breeding pool. Yeah, Teferi just happens faster than Alrund's Epiphany, so I'm gonna go with that. So the opponent is probably gonna have a slower start, given that they had to multi 5. All right, Growth Spiral from the opponent. I might be wrong about opponent having a slower start. We will keep that Mystical Dispute. And we'll go ahead and play Spara so that we can play Growth Spiral and be on track with the opponent. Right now, if they play Lotus Field, we're in a lot of trouble. That's good for us. Go ahead and Growth Spiral. Opponent has a Growth Spiral. Interesting. Did not have a land, so they were just cycling. Go ahead and play Spara's Headquarters. And then I think the only things we're going to counter with Mystical Dispute are blue spells, so I'm okay with foretelling this. And similarly, next turn I'm okay with playing Teferi into holding up just Mystical Dispute. It will suck if the opponent has a counterspell, but given that they don't have a Lotus Field right now and they don't have that many cards in hand, cycling Vizier of Tumbling Sands, okay. I think the opponent is desperately looking for a Lotus Field. Okay, so I regret my decision of foretelling Alrund's Epiphany. Good news is they don't have the Thespian stage active this turn, but they are going to have it next turn, so we are not going to be looking good after that. I guess, yeah, we can't not play Teferi here. All right. Okay, there's a Vizier. Note, by the way, that that is an ability, not a spell, so we can't Mystical Dispute that even if we wanted to. Thought Distortion. Okay, well, we can't counter that. That is kind of brutal. This exiles all of the non-creature, non-land cards from hands and graveyard. The good news is we still have Alrund's Epiphany, so got that going for us. Okay, that was a good draw. Go ahead and make some birds. All right, and then let's do an end step Growth Spiral. Oops. Well, it's not exactly what we wanted. Okay, the negate is nice, but most likely what's going to happen this turn is they're just going to activate Thespian Stage and not really do anything else. Yeah. One of the unfortunate things is even if we get to ultimate, oh my god. Even if we get to ultimate Teferi, exiling their board really doesn't do that much. There's only 2 lands we can hit. Lotus Field is hexproof, and so is the copy. So yeah, all we really have right now is this negate. Definitely need to counter that Emergent Ultimatum. And we need to proceed to try to draw more counter spells or a Damping Sphere or some extra turn spells. My goodness. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to mill the opponent, and the only reason is sometimes they run one-ofs to hit with Emergent Ultimatum, and if we hit them, good, but consider into. Okay, we can hold this up this turn even. Play one of these lands because why not? This is good. So you're saying there's a chance. An ultimatum again, and so again, say no to that. So the opponent has so much mana that I don't think exiling one of their lands is going to make a difference. And therefore, I'm going to plus Teferi rather than minusing. Okay, nice. And then I'm going to plus Jace on the opponent once again for the same reasoning of they might have a one of that they are hit. All right, let's see what we draw with Growth Spiral. Play Search for Azcanta. Then I don't think the 2 life on Hallowed Fountain could possibly matter, but I also don't think the 1 mana could possibly matter, so play it tapped. Yeah, so Behold the Beyond, I think that's one of the potential one-ofs for Emergent Ultimatum, that milling is good. What is going on here? Well, shoot. Can't counter both things. This also has flashback, so okay, I guess whatever's happening is happening. Guess whatever's happening is happening. Pithing Needle. Okay. Maybe I counter this one. I think I'll counter that one. That way they won't get the fairy. Yeah, if they Pithing Needle, it kind of sucks for us, but it's not the end of the world. Basically, I'm worried about this granted hitting something that's uncounterable. So, and also they can play the fairy again and then put it back to hand. Yeah, I think I'll counter this. Okay, it's likely going to name Teferi. Because the thing is, if they don't name Teferi, we can Teferi minus. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Makes sense. Oh, okay, I was not expecting that. Boseiju Who Endures. Makes sense, though. Go ahead and get a tap land. I'm gonna keep milling the... I'm gonna mill myself to try to work towards a win. Very smart. Then I could play Jace here to cycle, but I think I would rather get close to a draw 7. Opponent has no cards in hand, so I don't think they're especially close to killing us next turn. They need to get very, very lucky. Let's see here. And we've got Mystical Dispute. Nice. And then this represents lethal next turn, so I guess now, even though we have the draw 7 lined up for next turn, it's better to just cycle with Jace so that we can maybe have more interaction. My decisions. discard the Waterveil Spell Pierce. Should have milled them. Should have been smart enough to know. Go to that. I think that should be lethal then with this Hall of Storm Giants. Nice. I'll see you for the wrap-up. Okay, so we went 4-1. We lost to Esper God-Pharaoh's Gift. We beat Izzet Phoenix, we beat Mono Green Devotion, we beat Sultai Energy, and we beat Lotus Field. Overall, I really liked how the deck felt. I thought we had a pretty solid mix of engines, just enough extra turn spells and fogs, a little bit of acceleration and growth spiral, and interaction. I do think that because all of the extra turn effects are one-time use only, the literal extra turns will exile themselves and we just don't have a way to get fog back from the graveyard. It can sometimes feel like you're kind of walking on a razor's edge here where you just barely have enough extra turns to bring it all together. But thanks to Jace Wielder of Mysteries, you don't necessarily need to even cast all of your extra turn spells. You just need to get through your deck and then you can win the game. So it is nice to have both of these win conditions where if you are able to chain a few Alrund's Epiphanies together and attack with your birds for 2 and then 4 and then 6, get in there for that 12 or however much damage, you can win the game that way. But also if your opponent is just gaining a lot of life or your birds just die, it is still very easy to win the game by just decking yourself with Jace. The sideboard I also think is pretty solid. It's definitely nice to have access to board wipes and Supreme Verdict. A little bit of extra removal in March Otherworldly Light, also very helpful. The counter suite is pretty reasonable, except that one card that I wasn't thinking about during deck construction was Dovin's Veto, which is close to a strict upgrade over Negate. Instead of costing 1 in a blue like Negate does, Dovin's Veto costs white in a blue. Then it has the same effect, counter target non-creature spell, but Dovin's Veto cannot be countered, which just makes Dovin's Veto a lot better in the blue-white control matchup, but didn't really matter in this league. They're pretty similar, but I do think Dovin's Veto is better, and so this should probably get replaced. We didn't get to see all of our silver bullets in action. We didn't see mono red, so we didn't get to play Sunset Revelry, and we didn't get to see Sphinx of the Final Word really crushing a blue-white control deck. But it was definitely nice to have Damping Sphere against Lotus Field as a card that we could draw to just kind of really annihilate their game plan. One change that I was considering making is moving some board wipes to the main board, given how powerful they can be. Especially like when your opponent on mono green is starting to build up their board and get a whole bunch of devotion, instead of just Fateful Absencing and removing, one creature's worth of devotion from the board, why not just remove all of it? The why not being it might increase the mana cost of the deck by too much. 25 lands might not be enough to support this. We were having a little bit of trouble consistently hitting land drops in a few of those games. So one consideration, if we were to bring Supreme Verdict into the main deck, is to add some more utility lands with maybe something like Castle Ardenvale, so that you can increase the land count, but still have something to do if you're flooding out. Admittedly, creating a 1/1 isn't that powerful, but creating multiple 1/1s over the course of multiple turns can be the difference between winning and losing. And then maybe also adding something like Quicken over Consider. Another consideration is the cantrip Quicken to replace Consider. Quicken allows you to cast sorceries at instant speed. So there are two main uses for this. The first is to Supreme Verdict at instant speed, which is particularly good against things like manlands, which Supreme Verdict normally isn't very good against, or against just a tricky deck like Spirits that maybe is going to flash things in at your end step. You can Quicken Verdict at your end step and hit all the spirits that just entered the battlefield, or maybe against a deck that has haste creatures, you can Quicken Verdict at their combat step and not get hit by their hasty creatures. The other thing that Quicken does is against a blue-white control deck, allows you to cast an extra turn spell at their end step and then proceed to untap and either cast a Planeswalker or another extra turn spell or whatever, and try to really tax their mana so that they won't be able to counter all of the different threats that you're putting forward. So it is versatile, but obviously not having any kind of card selection is a downgrade compared to Consider. So gonna have to test this out. Not sure that it's a change for the better, but it is an interesting thought. I do think these 4 flex slots in the sideboard are definitely open to change at any time based on the meta. Like, if we just don't see mono red, then Sunset Revelry should go and be replaced by something that we're actually going to bring in. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you for the next one.